All right, good morning. We'll get started. My name is John Decker, the Director of Community Services at Alta California Regional Center. Today is November 4th. It's 11:03 a.m. and we've got 44 participants on for Coffee with Community Services today. Good morning, everyone. Go over the agenda and do some quick introductions of folks that are here. So I'm going to go over the agenda real quick and then introduce some of the Alta staff because I know people are kind of still joining. So first thing I wanted to discuss is one-page addendums for tailored day services. We've had an opportunity to have some emails back and forth with our staff, and I think we are going to look at moving forward with a format for the one-page addendum, and so we'll go over that a little bit. We will discuss the employment grants. We learned a little bit more about that yesterday. We have a crisis services vendor fair that's coming up, and maybe we can have Christy talk about that a little bit. We have a day in employment fair that's coming up, and so we'll have Carly maybe share a little bit about that as well. We've got information about the January rate increases that are coming in. A little bit more information related to the workforce survey payments, the $8,000 payments for providers that filled out their surveys. Let's see, we have some updating meetings with the Department of Developmental Services, for example, the quality incentive, and so we'll go over that a little bit with folks. We have an update on what we're going to be doing related to the social rec grants for an upcoming public meeting that we're going to be holding during Coffee with Community Services. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we have a public meeting coming up November 17th for NCI. So we'll talk about that briefly. And then if we have time, we'll talk about our community resource development plan stakeholder meeting and kind of what the status is for us in submitting our community placement plan, community resource development plan proposals for this year. And additionally, because I see Reva right there, I want to make sure that we remind folks about our coordinated future planning training that we did. We're in the middle of 1 to 2 sessions here, so I'm just going to put coordinated future planning. And of course, if there's any agenda items that you are interested in, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat or to kind of interrupt it as there's a good time, and we can try to answer questions that folks have elsewise. So again, we've got a number of Alta staff on, so I'll kind of go through real quickly here. We have our employment specialist, Carly, who's on, and from community services, we have Nicole and Shirley, and we have Rima, our deaf and hard of hearing specialist, and we have Odelia from Community Services, and let's see, Christy, another specialist, and Kate, and Jason Scantleberry, and we've got Gary, another specialist from the Community Services Department. Where are we talking about? And then QA specialist, I see Scott on here. My assistant Zach is on here, our CSS manager. So Jordan Eller is on here. I'm sure Helen will be joining us shortly as well. Michelle McDonald is off today, and so she'll be joining us hopefully, well, for not next week because there is no Coffee with Community Services next week. And then we've got some managers and executive staff. So we've got let's see, we've got Faye on here. I see Faye Tate is on here this morning. Good morning. And we have Heidi up in our Grass Valley office, who's always a frequent attender of these meetings. And Associate Client Services Directors, we've got both Tracy Brown and Jennifer Bloom on this morning. So good morning. And let's see, who did I miss from Alta? I think I got just about everyone on here. And ready. And so let's get into the agenda. So first thing I want to share with folks is that we are looking at no longer waiting from the Department of Developmental Services to put out their one-page addendum guidelines for the for the tailored day services. And instead, there is a number of regional centers that are putting forth just a version that was developed by one of the regional centers and is kind of being sent around. And I think we're going to look at adopting this. And so I wanted to share it real quickly with folks and get feedback, since a number of you would be ones that might be interested in filling out a tailored day service one-page addendum. I think the funny part is that the instructions for the one-page addendum are actually longer than a page. it's like a page and a paragraph. I don't know, but we still with bullet points believe that we can get this all on one page. So let's share this real quickly with you so you can take a look at it. And so for my staff, this is the one that this is the second one that I think all of you said that you liked better than the initial one that I sent you, because this is a little bit easier to, I think, to follow, and it looks more like a template as opposed to just repeating what the law says. And so just to go over this real quickly with folks, and I think the plan will be to put this out if there's any revisions to it, but to put it out like on Monday via MailChimp to all of our service providers so you can take a look at it. So when we're talking about brief narratives, we're talking about brief narratives. The hope is truly that we can get this information as close as possible onto one page. So a brief narrative description of the Tailored Day Service, including a description of how you will reach TDS philosophy goals, such as, and then here's a list of different things that you might address, or or one of these with the list that you might address. Next is the staffing ratio. We just need something that indicates that it's going to be at a 1-to-1 ratio. I know that's a big discussion that came up yesterday during the employment specialist meeting because we don't believe anything that actually is in writing that says it has to be a 1-to-1 ratio. However, we know that's what the department has indicated, that it should be a 1-to-1, and we know that the way they developed the rate was based off of 2 times the 1-to-2 rate. So again, 1-to-1 services. A brief narrative or bullet points or some combination outlining the broad services from which the client could select to develop their ISP. And again, we give some examples about what that might look like and what we might be expecting as far as the amount of information that you will need to provide related to this. So again, not trying to make it turn into something that is extremely long, but rather something that you can accomplish through a short paragraph or bullet points for these different things. These things, again, could just be a couple bullet points: entrance criteria, exit criteria. You can see the examples that are even in here, which are very common for those of you that have done this before for any program designs. And again, you can see the format that we're looking at: bullet points, short descriptions, days and hours that you're looking at providing the service. Again, and then who of your staff are going to be doing it. You can submit the specific job description separately. We don't need you to like write out all the job descriptions. We get it that you guys have that in a separate form. We would just attach that to this. And then there's some optional areas here if it's applicable to what you're planning on doing, like a staff training plan or a program evaluation, if it's not already something that's in the program design. Usually those are already in the program design. I know I went over that relatively quickly, but I'm really want to be open to folks that have questions about this, because we know what the intent of the department was, which is to not make you have to write a big long program design addendum or something to do the Tailored Day Service vendorization. So feedback from folks related to this, brief document here that outlines, again, hopefully how we can get this onto a page or so for your Tailored Day Services. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can see folks that are here. If folks have their questions or feedback, we'd be interested in this. This is in line with what we were looking at putting together, but it looks like it's going to be adopted by a number of regional centers, and we certainly don't want to create something separate if we already have a template that looks like it will work and be easy. I think the main thing that is important as it relates to this is that if, as you are working on it, like it seems like it's turning into a long document, please contact your community services specialists. I don't know that I will be able to give you direct technical assistance, but our community services specialists certainly can. And if, for example, you start hearing like the request for information is much longer than what you can capture in a page or so, then again, I think that's when we need to make sure we're all on the same page. Again, the specialists for day programs are basically all here right now. They had an opportunity to take a look at this a little bit earlier, in addition to another template that I think everyone liked this one better. So feedback from folks, will you all find that if we can get something like this to you early next week, that you can maybe start working on some of these. And I would love to be able to host a coffee with community services with a really good example of what one might look like. For example, with some of the bullet points or very short answers, short paragraph type things. So with all of that being said, feedback then about this, we don't feel like we can wait much longer to get this out for folks because it's already November. We're talking about alternative services going away December 31st. And so ARCA, Darlene from ARCA reached out to us yesterday and said she recommended regional centers maybe just move forward with our own short formats. All right, everyone sounds like they love it and are super enthusiastic about us doing this. And so we're going to send it out to folks then. I think the plan will be like Monday. I just want to make sure I go through it and make sure that if Shirley or Jason or someone, if there was something type of feedback that we missed or something that we want to take out of it or whatever, that we just give it a look. And then Monday we can look at sending it out to people more widely, and then communicate with us. Let us know if you're having trouble being able to do it. Let your specialists know. I know that we'll be talking about it specifically. But the big thing that ARCA just pushed was that this needs to be a brief process. This is not a full program design that people should have an expectation to be receiving from the service providers. All right. Additionally, we had the employment specialist meeting yesterday, and Carly was there along with I think we had 29 folks on from the regional centers. One of the questions was related to the employment grants, and so we got a little bit of clarification from the Department of Developmental Services about what their expectations are of the regional center as it relates to the review of the employment grants. And so I believe it's similar to like the service access and equity grants and the way that we look at them to review that service providers are in good standing that are submitting the employment grants. But I believe it's this month, right, Carly, that we're expecting the employment grant approval, like towards the end of the month?
They're hoping by November 30th, but if not November 30th, then the first week of November, or sorry, the first week of December at the latest.
So again, I think the idea is they're going to get them to the regional center ahead of that for us to be able to take a look at them. But we're not doing like an exhaustive review. We're not scoring these or anything like that. It really is just going to be, taking a look at it, making sure the vendor is in good standing, making sure that the vendor reached out to us. I shouldn't say the vendor, the service provider, whoever it is that submitted the employment grant, reached out to us in advance. And we did get quite a few people that reached out to us in advance before they submitted their employment grants. So we'll look forward to that. I will just share Alta really is hoping that the employment grant that we submitted in collaboration with Sierra College is approved. Carly worked a lot on that with Lou Vismara, trying to really work on developing this relationship with Sierra College so that we can get more early identification of individuals that would benefit from getting into the community college setting, and also with that leading to paths for more competitive integrative employment for individuals as well. So we're looking forward to that. This is a pilot that we're looking at with Sierra College, but the hope would be that this could be like statewide technical assistance that can be given to community colleges so that we can encourage more participation by regional center clients. And again, early identification of all those different types of job options that you can get through your community college. So those are coming up, and I really hope that they come out at the beginning of December, or at least November 30th or whenever, because it's been a while since we turned those in, and I know people are wanting to get working on those. Christy, we've got a vendor fair coming up. What's going on with the crisis vendors?
Well, the Crisis Vendor Fair is coming up very soon. It's next week, and it's actually presentations from different vendors such as Alpha One, which is an emergency ambulance service, and we have Star, Turning Point, Step, Kala, Marikey, the Behavior Center. So for crisis behavioral services, and we have priorities. So it's an internal presentation for all the Alta staff and for the managers to learn more about the services that we provide and how we can better support our community. So.
Yeah. And John, we're also seeing if CBEM can join us for that presentation. So we hope to get them on as well.
I'm muted, but I see Michelle looking intently into the camera right now. And so we made a little mistake on our invitation list. We had one of our community services specialists that left our department. And so CBEM got a late invitation to that one as well. But being like our largest crisis services provider, certainly someone that we want to be present for this. We did this, Garrett might remember this. We did this, what, about like 4 years ago, maybe, where we had all the vendors come in. And at that time, Garrett was the administrator for our first community crisis home, if I remember correctly. And so it's just
about 5 years ago now.
Was it 5? Oh my goodness, 5 years ago. And so it's just great, I think, for people to be able to see what the other services are that, if you're a crisis service provider, but, so many new service coordinators as well. It's important that they are also aware of all the different things that are available and, why you might want to choose one type of crisis provider than another one that we have at our regional center. One thing I will say, being a longtime member of the safety network group for the regional center for the Department of Developmental Services, they have for the DS task force. Alta California Regional Center has a lot of crisis services. Over the years, the CBP, CRDP unit has been able to add a lot of new types of programs and homes. And so I think it is excellent that we're going to be able to do a crisis vendor fair so people can, understand what is all out there. I think what I would be interested in doing too is taking a look at how we can kind of share that information widely with all of our service providers, right? And so I know one thing that we've been discussing is looking at our website and seeing how we can provide more information on our website about some of the specialized things that go on. So for example, REMA has feedback about how we can have specific information about services for individuals that are deaf and hard of hearing on our website, like a separate landing page for it. We're working on some ideas related to kind of a separate landing page for our housing activities, because we have all these different housing activities that are going on. Where can we direct people to on our website? And so I'll ask Jordan and Christy to think about this a little bit, but maybe having our crisis services and having a place on our website where all in one place you can get information about what our different crisis services are. And then, as we add more vendors or, vendors maybe change who they're planning on serving, we can just keep it updated on our website. But I love these great things that we're doing internally for our staff, but it's figuring out how we can also provide that widely to our service providers as well, because I will tell you, if I was a service provider, I would want to know what crisis services are out there when the crises are going on for, the mutual clients that we serve at the regional center. So let's look at doing something like that. And then I would love to be able to, during Coffee with Community Services, be able to go through our website, for example, and show some of the different services, or we can also look at bringing some of those, providers here. Some of you might not be familiar with CBEM, but CBEM attends these meetings every Friday. And they serve a whole lot of our clients, and they've been serving them now for like 13 years or 14 years, I think, now in our area. So again, just as things are really challenging, sometimes these crisis services can really help stabilize individuals and keep them from going into higher levels of care, have people be able to be maintained in, their preferred living arrangement. And so I just appreciate the work, Christy, on getting the fair together, and all the people that will be presenting at it as well. What else? We have a day in employment fair. Harley, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, so on November 15th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Here at the Sacramento Alta office, we are having an in-person vendor fair for our day in employment programs. So far, we have about 15 vendors signed up to attend. The State Council on Developmental Disabilities will also be there. So this is just an opportunity. We have so many new service coordinators. This is just an opportunity for our vendors to connect with our service coordinators, so they can learn more about your programs, especially ahead of the ending of alternative services. Many of you will be making changes to your programs, adding TDS and such, so they can learn what your programs will look like come the new year.
Any questions about that? I think I would certainly hope that we could get more than 15 of our programs down there to meet all of our service coordinators that are new. We got managers that are new. So just want to encourage everyone to participate in that. Let's say we get our, on the 7th, we get our tailored day services addendum template out. That means everyone's going to have their addendums done by that Friday, right? It'll be so easy because it's going to be such a short template. And then people can talk about it the next week at the vendor fair for day and employment. So
Yeah.
that's my optimism that it's going to go
So-
all that
Please,
fast.
please email me if you want a table. And then John, if you don't mind, I also want to shout out our micro enterprise fair.
Oh
that we
yes,
are-
absolutely, please.
That we are going to be hosting on November 30th, also from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in person here at the Harvard office. This is a chance for our, yeah, I'll put all the information for both of these fairs in the chat. So the Micro Enterprise Fair is an opportunity for our clients who have their own small businesses to come and showcase these businesses, whether it be landscaping, dog walking, arts and crafts, whatever it is, an opportunity for them to come showcase. We're getting the word out to the community. Anyone is welcome to attend. So please, if any of the clients that you support have a small business and would be interested in doing this, please get the word out. Again, I am the contact person for this. So if anyone wants to reserve a table for the Micro Enterprise Fair, please reach out to me. Yes, I will put my
Right.
information in the chat and as well as the information for the fairs.
And the Micro Enterprise Fair is open to anyone that might want to come by and buy something, right? Perfect. Yes. All right. I see that we have Michelle Johnson here, and I don't know how long we will, so I want to just check in real quick about the NCI public meeting. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's going to be, Michelle?
Sure. We're going to be reviewing our data at the next board meeting, which is
November
November 17th. So again, we're going to be reviewing the data. And I know there's a link on our website that has that you can register for the board meeting. And there's also a link on our website that actually contains the NCI data itself. I'll see if I can find that while we're on the call.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I think it might be on our events calendar. I hope it is. We shall see. I'll let you look for that one. All right. And so national core indicators, this is a great way to look at the effectiveness of the delivery of the services that are being provided. And again, as we are moving towards a more data-driven system, things like NCI data and holding public meetings and being transparent about what people are saying about their services is something that we certainly have a commitment to and support the department's position in making that a new requirement. All right. January rate increases. Oh, thank you very much. So Carly's got the information in the chat there. And then I believe Carly's got her email in there as well, if you want to shoot an email over to her. So for the January rate increases, and I hate to say this with our community services specialists, but we have some new batches in. We have batches 1 through 3. This is like re-traumatizing folks from having to do the first rate study implementation back in April, because it was such a significant amount of work for our staff and certainly for you as service providers that worked with us to be able to provide the information for the surveys. So we don't have all of the information yet to update the rates, but we do have, I think, the first 3 batches, and we're waiting on number 4 of the different service codes. So the way this works is the Department of Developmental Services sends out certain lists of service codes, and that's what we work on when we're verifying rate increases. And so in this case, we are looking at the 50% increase for the rate study, and that would be beginning on you would be billing at the beginning of February, and that would be your January authorizations that would have the updated rates added to them. So we met with Robin LeMay, and we met with this morning, and she was just saying, her and Iqbal are certainly going to be very busy and processing things. All right, let's see here. In the chat we have Michelle Ramirez, just the next 25%, not a full 50%. If for the minimum wage increase, will we still fill out the Excel sheet if we are paying lower than the upcoming $1550 to receive the increase in our rates? That is one that we will follow up with our accounting department on. So let's see here. Let me have let's see. Eric, to everyone, providers who believe that they have found issues. So first, let me get the minimum wage increase. Let's see. Who raise your hand if you got in alliance? That's you, Jason, right? No. Yeah, Jason. All right. So Jason, that's your question for Iqbal and for Robin LeMay, please. And then providers who believe that they have found issues or have questions about their regional center rate migration or calculations, how should they notify ACRC or DDS prior to 1/1 of 23? Again, I would say reach out directly to your specialist if there's any issues that need to get rectified, you believe, in advance to January 1 of 2023. And so let's see here. I think that would probably be the best. Yeah, the best thing right now. Just reach out to your specialist directly related to it. Again, the specialists that do the day program and employment services, the adult services, is primarily Michelle McDonald. Helen primarily has the children's services, the therapies, transportation, and then Jordan has all the specialized services, things like our specialized homes, specialized day programs, specialized crisis services are all under Jordan. So if you were not hearing back from your specialist, that being said, we have had a little bit of turnover in staff. We had our HCBS specialist who is now a manager, Cindy Lay. And so Christy, who will wave to you guys again, is serving as our kind of interim HCBS specialist. And meanwhile, we are looking at the additional hiring of a few more positions. I had an opportunity, there's a question in there related to the SLS group and the SLS rates. So I had an opportunity to talk with Iqbal yesterday. Helen and I met with him about the infant development programs. And then we also met briefly about the supported living programs. And Iqbal walked me through very clearly how no one will have any rates lowered as of the next, as of January when that occurs. However, I will just say to folks, I need to meet with him a little bit more Monday, Tuesday of next week to make sure that I fully understand it well enough to be able to talk with folks about it. But I'm looking at scheduling a meeting, and we'll do it virtually, obviously, but it would be the week before Thanksgiving. So it'd be one of those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, looking at having a meeting just to let folks know, because I have a list of those providers that are specially impacted related to this. And so the plan would be to follow up back with them related to the concerns that were raised with the SLS rates. And yes, you can still get your January rates. Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a rate increase. If you look at the rate, it shows us as an increase, but when you unbundle, it's a loss overall in terms of your billing because you're losing that flat rate. So I want to make sure that's clear because yes, if he shows you just the rate that we're going to receive, it will look like $1 or so increase or whatever. But when you take the unbundling out and you add the math for a vendor, that's where those big hits come. So I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So
yes, we certainly are talking about the same thing. And again, Iqbal walked me through it. But the concern was about whether or not we make any modifications to the way people bill and whether or not that leads to them being able to bill for less before the hold harmless is up. Therein lies like the issue, is that we feel like the hold harmless is pretty firm as it relates to service provider rates. And so for some programs, it's going to be tough for us to be able to increase rates without doing a different methodology, like breaking apart the rates for some service codes. But for SLS specifically, like I said, met with them yesterday. I think I understood about 85% of what we talked about, but the other 15% I would need to learn before I would want to host a public meeting and make sure that I'm really clear on giving people guidance that's not going to lead them to have some billing issue. And that's the last thing we want, right? We don't want repayments. We don't want any of those types of things to happen. So yes, I will be following up. I'll talk with Zach. We'll look at getting with Michelle McDonald and some of our staff so that we can host a meeting with folks to give an update on it right there. The plan will be before Thanksgiving, because I know this is a big concern for people as we look at planning for January. Yeah, and again, we did have a discussion about getting the rates and the spreadsheets out to folks as well, so that they could take a look at them too. So again, I will reconvene with Iqbal on Monday about that and see if we can get something for you to be able to look at, in advance of that meeting that's on November. Well, it'll be like whatever, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Maybe like the Wednesday afternoon before Thanksgiving. I know you guys really like meeting with me, so we could do it during that time, but I'll probably do it Monday. I'll work it out. We'll get an invitation out. I did receive emails from a number of SLS vendors that wanted to be included in that discussion. So absolutely. Related to rate increases and related to the last 10% of the rate increase, and related to how that's going to be calculated based on the information that I shared last week. It's still up in the air. To reference what I'm talking about, there is a concern about the language that was included in the most recent trailer bill letter from the Department of Developmental Services about how the full rate increases are going to be calculated. And it appeared that providers may, if they don't hit the quality incentive marks, be losing 10% of their possible rate, which is a huge cut for service providers. So just wanted to share that that's still an ongoing discussion as far as what exactly that's going to look like. I think that I think all the regional centers are hearing from service providers that are concerned related to that. Before I move too far away from rates, I want to there was a meeting for ILS providers on Tuesday, I think it was on Tuesday, that CCLN put on. Can anyone share or willing to share? I know we talked about it last week. We promoted it last week during this meeting, but I was not able to attend the meeting. And so if anyone was there maybe a little summary that we could get about kind of what the discussion was about?
Yeah, so what CCLN has been working on for this past year was a look at the actual rate for ILS. So if you all remember correctly, ILS was left out basically of the rate study in terms of receiving an increase in it. In some cases, in some regional centers, especially in Alta's, it actually is a lower rate for many vendors. So as much as $9 in some cases. So it's a pretty significant cut. So we looked at several positions within the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and we came up with a rate that is higher than the current rates that are posted in the rate study. So we just went through the methodology of how we came about that, how the committee has been working on this. There is some language in the that has been developed by CCLN, and CDSA is also in support of this effort. And so we're just looking for a champion legislator to support the bill. There is some language fixes that are needed in the current methodology of the rate study. So that is also included. I think that covers it. Was anybody else there? Did I miss anything?
I think you got it, Michelle.
Cool. Thank you very much. Again, you know, when these things are statewide issues, it's nice to be involved with folks like CCLN that can, you know, they have the voice with the Department of Developmental Services as well. They can speak for a whole lot of service providers all at once. And so always appreciate when we can, you know, work collectively to try to address these issues, because the last thing we need is any more service providers doing ILS that can't continue to serve our clients. We're looking at, you know, the continued expansion of our services. Just and if Camelia was here this morning, she would tell you all about the intake numbers and how things have just been skyrocketing. But this year specifically, we are really coming out of I think a little bit of a lower numbers from COVID, and we're just kind of skyrocketing for new clients that are being made eligible for the regional centers. So with that, you know, we can't look at losing any service providers. We just have to keep looking at adding more and more opportunities. So again, ILS, I've heard it loud and clear from a number of ILS agencies that, you know, this is not something that will lead to sustainability as it relates to these services for our regional centers. So certainly always willing to help advocate for the stabilization of the rates moving forward. All right, workforce surveys. We had a little meeting this morning again with our accounting department, like we do every morning before we have this meeting. And there was a discussion that we believe that the workforce surveys, the $8,000, have gone out. And we believe that the last ones went out on the 21st of October. So with that being said, I'm just going to go over to share my screen for DDS's website real quickly, because I want to show folks again where the list is as to whether or not you were someone that was going to be receiving this. And so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go to vendors right here. And let's see, the quality incentive program and workforce capacity. Jordan Eller showed me how to do this morning. And then you have the quality incentive program that describes the letter that describes it. And then it has the enclosure B, which is the list of the individuals that are included on it. It says it's the corrected one that is final from DDS. And so you can find yourself on this list. And if you are on this list and you have not received from Alta California Regional Center your payment, then we might have an issue, and we need you to reach out to your community services specialist and let them know. And now we see, let's say DDSO got their work survey money, very good. Other folks, so does anyone think that maybe they did not get theirs? Or again, we know that DDS was still trying to process some, I think, partial ones that were maybe not fully completed, but again, in talking to Robin this morning and double checking the list, it seems like we've covered the ones that were done for our catchment areas. So there's that. All right. And On My Own is not on that list, huh? Still. I'm double checking the list myself right now. All right. I don't know who filled out the survey, Michelle. We're going to have to get that figured out, though. Because that would be more of a DDS issue then if it's not on DDS's list.
Yeah, we
as
did it
opposed to our-
early too, for both
Yeah.
companies. We did it early, so it should be on there twice.
Yeah, that is so strange. Again, there is, for this one, I think, you know, because it's, if you are not on the list, that's one thing. If you're on the list and you didn't get paid from us, then I think that's possibly an Alta issue. But if you're not on that list from DDS and you know that staff filled out those surveys, then I think probably going to the website there or excuse me, the email address that I just put in the chat would probably be the best next step related to that. All right. We want to discuss upcoming Coffee with Community Services, because we have a holiday next Friday. And so Alta will be closed. And then the following week after that, we are looking at a kind of a special presentation. So I'm going to have Helen share with you all what we are looking at for November 18th.
Yeah, so we assigned November 18 as the question and answer for the social recreation grant. And the grant RFP is already on our website. I'll put the link on the chat. Anybody interested in applying for that grant, please go ahead and look at the RFP on our website. And then November 18 will be an opportunity to ask questions, and we will provide clarification on how the grant is going to be implemented. Yep, that's it. Thank you, John.
John, you're muted.
I said some really awesome and funny things just now that none of you got to hear. So it's going to be November 18th. We'll answer all the questions related to this. Obviously, Helen is got quite a bit of experience in administering grants and things like that. So we'll look forward to hearing what opportunities. Again, it's, you know, there's a lots of different groups that can be encouraged to respond back to this. So again, we'll look at discussing it during our Coffee with Community Services. And you can always reach out to Helen directly as well if you have any questions related to the community integration grants for social recreation. All right. All right, so one of the questions is, when will we hear back about our proposed program design reinvention? So for the specialist that's assigned to it, for Anita's in the chat there, let's work on a response back via email so that they know how quickly they will be able to hear it, when they'll be able to hear whether or not it was approved or not. So not quite sure what the status of that one is, if it's already been submitted, but I know for the program design addendums, our plan is going to be to get them approved as quickly as possible so that folks can start making their plans for January for the end of alternative services. All right, I want to go to just one more thing real quickly. Looking at the calendar, there will also not be a Coffee with Community Services the week after that because it is Thanksgiving. And so Alto will be closed on the Friday after Thanksgiving. So then we will reconvene that following Friday and go through until right before the holidays. So we'll look forward to connecting with people a little bit more, but we don't have, right now we just have the one date that's coming up for the 18th for the social rec grants. I think Jordan might, if we'll see how time goes, Jordan might have something that we're gonna go over related to that too. Jordan, you know, we didn't get a chance, but I know that you and I think Johnny was on here, but you and Johnny had an opportunity to go to the risk management symposium. And so I don't know if either of you would be interested in sharing with folks a little bit about kind of what's going on statewide as it relates to SIRs, but you know, there was a big public meeting that was held, you know, with a lot of different regional centers. And so any insights that you guys can share with us about the conference or the symposium, excuse me?
Yeah, certainly. And so, and certainly feel free, Jordan, to add anything in after if I miss anything. Great symposium, 2 days. And then they did touch on towards the second day, they did touch on as it relates to the SIRs and what, you know, what are some of the proposed changes. And so Leslie over at DDS is anticipating that we may, if optimistically, we may be looking at those changes probably sometime in 2024, just because what those proposed changes and feedback from stakeholders and other folks in regional centers as well too, that they're revisiting. So I know they pull up pretty briefly. We went over some of those proposed changes and there were questions that were thrown out there. So there are some things for them to take back and to review. So what that sure is that's probably going to go through a couple times before they really kind of dial in and finalize it and and send it through the proper channel. So optimistically, probably looking at maybe 2024, but realistically, maybe looking at 2025. And so it just really depends on how things flow through that channel for review. And there were many other things that were discussed as it relates to just overall risk mitigation and looking at, quality assurance, but not only just focused in quality assurance, but looking at really dialing in on quality improvement. And so when they talk about looking at quality assurance, typically we're just hitting the metrics, we're hitting the marks. But how can we dial in further to look at improving the qualities and not just going off from the metrics or the requirements or standards that have been set, but going above and beyond that. So there are quite the discussion around that, and we had many different sort of breakout sessions where they were able to present many different topics depending on what you were interested in. And so we weren't able to go to every single one of them just because it was running concurrently, but they did provide many of the presentations, to us so that way we can review on our own leisure time. Jordan, anything else?
That was a great summary, Johnny Jong. So yeah, and what else was really cool is that our victims advocate, Sharon Kerpinski, was able to share how our agency addresses SIRs that are in regards to suspected abuse and neglect. Right. And I actually hope in November or December to have Sharon share some of that with you, a little bit about our victims advocacy here at the regional center and ways that we try to reduce risk for our clients and really use that SIR not just as a way to say, hey, a mistake was made, but really using that SIR to assess for additional services, right? Assessing for should systems change? Are there errors that we're continuing to see, right? So really not looking at just getting it done, but why we're getting it done. So we'll have Sharon share some of that in the next month or so.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you that were able to attend that symposium. I heard nothing but very positive things from people statewide that had the opportunity to participate in that and hear about best practices that are going on at different regional centers as it relates to processing these things. And I think what Sharon was able to share for our regional center is our best practice of how she gets our executive management team looped into these abuse and neglect SIRs so that our executive team is aware of what's going on, we're aware of what follow-up is needed and what follow-up occurred. And again, as we get to be a larger and larger agency, I think it's very important that we stay on top of these types of issues. So I just appreciate Sharon doing that. I appreciate Johnny and Jordan both being able to attend that as well and bring back those great opportunities for knowledge that we get from other regional centers, here and from DDS. I did want to, and I'm going to jump over to Garrett's question in just a second. I did want to just say quickly, this is this is related to the changes in special incident reporting that's going to be going on as a result of the Office of Inspector General when they came out and conducted their analysis of the regional centers reporting requirements, and they parked themselves at Alta California Regional Center for quite some time and went through a lot of our special incident reports and went through other regional centers as well. And there's a push to expand special incident report categories to include, more information we already know about medication errors. They're wanting, a little bit more information about what kind of medication errors, but then looking at expanding things, looking at like emergency room visits and law enforcement contacts. So there are certainly opportunities where we could be seeing a much larger amount of special incident reports that are going to need to be processed, by the regional centers. So I think ARCA and others, we're looking at just the impact on the regional centers and certainly on the service providers. The quality incentive stuff is awesome. Quality improvement is awesome. But when you're struggling to be able to fill the shifts that you have, sometimes the things that you want to be able to do to improve the quality, if it's not something that can be kind of easily attainable, it takes the back seat to making sure that you've just got people's health and safety covered, people that are providing those direct supports. Garrett, I saw your hand up related to risk management.
Yeah, well, first of all, Jordan and Johnny, thanks for sharing. I love symposia, so I love to hear about them. I'm curious, and I actually heard some of these things from you, John. I was curious if you could share more about what some of the suggested revisions are. I'm hearing overall that they're likely to be lengthened and not shortened. So I heard expanding more information on med errors, maybe on ER
Yeah,
visits.
I'll kind of, and again, none of this is finalized quite yet. However, they did have a very large meeting with a lot of regional center staff talking about the different categories. And so, just as we said, looking at all of those things that were found by the Office of Inspector General, all of those things that are leading our staff to make follow-up calls with you all about whether or not SIRs were put in for a emergency room visit. And it's just codifying where they want to go in law with expanding their requirements. Michelle's been part of the group that's been working on this for over the last year as well. So, I mean, we do have ALTA feedback at the table as it relates to the SIR expansion that they're looking at doing. But even the definitions of being under vendored care. You might know if you're a supported living provider that there's a disparity in the state of California about how supported living is described. In some, regional center catchment areas, supported living might be described as independent living, or what we call independent living might be called supported living in other regional center catchment areas, just like lower intensity supported living, as opposed to calling it ILS. That really makes it difficult when you're trying to do SIR comparisons between regional centers. And also, we hold, even if the SLS provider does not provide 24/7 care, we still say an individual's under vendored care. And if it did not occur while you were there, we still require the SLS vendors to submit SIRs, for example. That's not something that consistently goes on throughout the state too. And so they're really trying to nail down, I think, a broader definition of what under vendored care means, but that becomes very impactful. If you're a therapy, if you're a service provider doing this, and now you have a new expanded responsibilities for SIR reporting, it's going to impact your agency. And so I know they're reaching out specifically to regional centers, talking about the impact on us, but I really hope that as they look at rolling things out, they're also getting feedback from you all as service providers as well about how these additional requirements are going to impact you too. And again, I know, Michelle, you were part of that work group that was kind of working on developing this. Was there a service provider component of this that you were aware of as far as feedback related to the SIR categories?
My work group only consisted of regional center, but staff, directors, CSS staff, case management staff, but I do know that DDS had other work groups. I know they had a stakeholder group. I know they met with clients. And so again, I do know that there was several other work groups that DDS was, in discussions with.
So you guys will know as soon as we do. You heard 2024 as a launch date, possibly, because there's a lot of things that have to get changed. You have to change the Welfare and Institutions Code in order to implement some of these changes. I think there's some Title 17 changes for the California Code of Regulations that might need to come in place as well. So again, I do want to share real quickly upcoming meetings that are happening over at the department. I've said it multiple times with you all, but I don't hear complaints about EVV. Seems like people got it figured out with the launch. And however, that being said, there is still meetings that are going on at the department. And if you go to DDS's homepage, I think Michelle Ramirez taught us about this one. They have the calendar down at the bottom right-hand corner, hit view calendar like we do, and then you can see these upcoming meetings. You can certainly get signed up so that you get emails of when the meetings are coming. But I know Safety Network Group is coming up on the 16th. That's always a good one. And then now DDS has opened these meetings up to everyone too. It used to be that it was like the invited people that were in the room and there was not any Zoom component, but these meetings are now fully virtual and typically a lot larger than what they were, a lot more input. Additionally, the Quality Incentive Program work group virtual meeting is coming up November 30th. So just want to encourage folks to check out DDS's website, see if there's any of these upcoming statewide meetings that you might be interested in, and register yourself to attend them, because right now there's, as many of you know, still a lot of things from last year's budget that need to be operationalized. Someone was talking to me about bilingual DSP dollars and where's that at, and what's the status of that. And again, we're waiting on a number of these different things to get operationalized. So with that being said, I think my assistant Zach is still around. If we have not sent out, which I don't think we have yet, sent out the workforce survey for you as service providers, it is going out today. So we'll talk to Herman. We'll get the workforce survey out. This is part 2. We did this last year in October, and so we're doing it now this year. And again, it's a very brief survey. It should not take you more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe to fill out. There's not a ton of questions in there, but we're hoping to get some good year-to-year data about what your hiring challenges are, really giving you a voice. I think we had 185 service providers that filled it out last year, and so I think we're hoping for at least that many this year. We're going to keep the survey open through December 1st because we want to, prior to the switch over to alternative services going away and back to different models, want to at least make sure folks are aware of what the status is with our service providers. And this will give an opportunity for a lot of service providers to be able to communicate about what they're able to do as far as their hiring and retention of staff and kind of what's gone on over this last year as well. I hear anecdotally from different people that it's getting better in some areas, but also then there's others that are still really struggling to try to get new opportunities. So Zach, later today, we'll have it, or in 2 minutes, we'll have a discussion about getting that sent out to folks, and we'll get it sent out later today from Herman to everyone. And the last thing I would just share is the Coordinated Future Planning Initiative kicked off our first training for service coordinators. We had 143 service coordinators that topped out participating in the training. Our clients and family members and staff did a fantastic job training our service coordinators, and we're doing part 2 of the training on Monday. And by then, we're hoping that our staff's competencies in being able to go into planning team meetings and talk about things like caregiver succession, talking about all kinds of different living arrangements for folks, that their competencies are raised so that they feel more comfortable doing that. So we'll talk more about the Coordinated Future Planning Initiative. We're going to be discussing it in our January newsletter, along with our dental clinic. And I don't know if we've announced it here, but dental coordinator for Alta California Regional Center starts on December 1st. So we're very, very happy about that. We've not had a dental coordinator, and we think that this is going to make a big difference for our clients. So with that, everyone have a great weekend. We will look forward to talking to folks, not next week, but the week after that, when we have our social recreation grant presentation and whatever other fun topics Jordan's able to whip up for us on that day. So have a great weekend, folks. This recording will be on YouTube, and I think we topped out at about 73 people today. Take care.